Early on June 20th, the morning twilight witnessed a comet ominously piercing through the sky, as if to signal the start of the battle.
Yo! Yo! Oh, dude! Imagine the vibe. Imagine the vibe. I could only imagine what the vibe would have been like seeing that comet in the sky and you're literally about to fight a battle. I was gonna do early Muslim expansion, but I'm gonna finish off this series. I'll probably draw early Muslim expansion tomorrow. So Battle of Catalaunian Plains Part 2 out of 2. This was actually this was quite good. This was quite good. This was quite good.
Hey guys, if you missed part 1 of this mini-series, you can find it here.
No, I did not. Okay. Let's just skip forward.
In moving against the West, Attila insisted he was not an invader, but someone who is claiming his right as the emperor's future brother-in-law. And with Honoria as his wife, the Hunnic king would get an opportunity to take over Gaul and continue the previous policy of supporting the West against its enemies, with the added benefit of territory within the empire and a direct connection to the throne. Rarely, if ever, was Aetius caught so completely off guard. Upon receiving word of the impending invasion, he set out from Italy to Gaul. Valentinian offered very little support, but Aetius brought with him the Auxilia Palatina. Although few in number, these were first-rate troops, capable of holding firm in line of battle, as well as conducting more mobile operations. Nevertheless, even when combined with his main force in Gaul, Aetius still didn't have the numbers to defeat the invaders. If you ever wanted to play as the most powerful
skip. Garbage mobile game.
New players
that I don't care about. Raid Shadow Legends, what a meme.
It seemed that the Roman general faced an insurmountable problem. For over 20 years he relied on the Huns and Alans to stamp his authority on the Visigoths, Franks, Burgundians, and Burgundiae. But now, with Attila on his way, he had to turn to his enemies for help. Realizing he could never persuade Theodoric to join him, the ever-resourceful Aetius sought assistance from Avitus. A prominent Roman aristocrat, Avitus once served as a Praetorian prefect of Gaul and was a personal friend and trusted advisor of the Visigothic king. He appealed to Theodoric that now was not the time to settle old political scores with Aetius. Now was the time to throw in his lot with the Romans to stop Attila. Persuaded, the king marched out of his capital. Diplomacy and charm produced what no war could have achieved, a force that could confront the greatest barbarian army yet to threaten the empire. For Aetius, however, the alliance with Theodoric was a marriage of convenience. He was forced to seek help and would have to make concessions to the Visigoths, but had no desire to see their power grow. His plan was to stop Attila, but to also remain the most powerful warlord in Gaul, and he would strive to prevent Theodoric from exploiting any victory against the Huns. Meanwhile, the Huns crossed the Rhine in the spring of 451, with contingents of Franks coming in from the north to join them. Attila had split his army into smaller bands to make foraging easier, concentrating his forces only near walled settlements. Assaulting and capturing a city would have given his army loot, slaves, and additional supplies. However, when confronted by well-defended cities, he could not afford the time needed for siege operations and could only try to rely on fear to gain entry, offering to spare the inhabitants from a horrific sack in exchange for provisions and shelter. And if the gates remained closed, Attila would have probably kept moving. The Hunnic army captured and sacked Metz in early April, then proceeded to cut a swathe through the countryside. Without organized Roman standing forces, the invaders were virtually unopposed. Logistics dictated their movement much more than tactical considerations. Attila was obliged to allow his followers chance to loot, but his focus would have been on moving quickly and creating such a nuisance that Aetius would be forced to sue for peace. His goal was Aurelianum, an important strategic city. Capturing it would have split Gaul in half, but if that proved not enough to bring the Romans to the negotiating table, he could meet them in battle, defeat them, and extract terms, as he has done before in the east. The Alan leader Sangiban must have received word on the approaching Huns. It is possible that he tried to play a duplicitous game, angling to join the side that was most likely to win.
Yeah, I'm looking at this.
Some debate.
Oh, whoa. What the hell? But yeah, I was looking at this. I was thinking, who's this tribe again? And what did they think of this?
It is possible that he tried to play a duplicitous game, angling to join the side that was most likely to win. There is certainly some debate about his loyalty, but it's likely that he sided with Aetius early on, as the two had a fruitful alliance over the years. Whatever the—
That's realistic. Plus, he was within Roman Gaul for a while, so yeah. I think that's probably what transpired, but you know, people tend to switch sides when they see the invaders winning. That is what Hannibal did. That's literally what happened with Hannibal. Rome in its early days, we all know Rome had like allies, air quotes. I didn't say air quotes because we all know that they were forceful alliances, but allies, right? And you know, when he started winning, they switched sides, so...
The case, what Attila failed to anticipate was a Romano-Visigothic alliance that could challenge him. Worse, Aetius got to Aurelianum first. He promptly entrenched...
Wait, what did he say? You could skip this part, but I didn't hear what he said. Hold on a second.
That could challenge him.
Before that, all I heard was Romano-Visigothic.
What Attila failed to anticipate...
Before that... Again, just skip this part.
Aetius early on,
if you need to.
as the two had a fruitful alliance over the years. Whatever the case, what Attila failed to anticipate was a Romano-Visigothic alliance that could challenge him. Worse, Aetius got to Aurelianum first. He promptly entrenched the outskirts of the city and made it a rallying point for the troops coming from the north. The cunning general cut a deal with the Baguadai and the recent immigrants from Britain, guaranteeing them freedom from imperial authority in exchange for their support.
No! That is BS.
Additional Frankish auxiliaries, Saxons, contingents of outlaws from Armorica, Lyticians and Burgundians were persuaded to join.
Bro! Freaking all these Germans. Oh my gosh. All these Germans. Wait, but I thought the Franks... He said that the Franks, some Franks joined Attila. So then why did some Franks join Attila and some join Aetius? What?
As well as smaller Sarmatian, Celtic, Swabian, and German tribes.
Bro! I also forgot to say Celtic tribes too, but all these Germans and Celts, oh my goodness.
So the Olabriones, who were former Roman soldiers, and the Alans from the Loire Valley. Once Attila arrived, he knew that the defensive position at Aurelianum favored the Romans. There is some evidence to suggest that he was unsettled by being confronted with Aetius's combined army on unfavorable forested ground around the Loire. Therefore, the Hunnic king withdrew from Aurelianum. He may have expected to take the city without a fight, but since this was no longer possible, he had no choice but to give battle, and he wanted to do so on the ground of his own choosing. He was familiar with the terrain he had already marched through after crossing the Rhine, and knew that the flat Catalaunian fields would favor his army. Mounted contingents and a baggage train would have kept the road, while the infantry made their way cross-country through the forest of Orléans, with the rally point at Senon. Aetius had to delay for a few days, departing from Aurelianum only after all his reinforcements had arrived. He predicted that he will catch up to Attila before he could cross the Seine, roughly an 8-day march. To slow down the enemy, the Roman general dispatched fast-moving contingents of riders ahead of the main army to harass Attila's column in the hilly, heavily forested territory, where there was little room for the Huns to maneuver. While this didn't cause significant losses to Attila, it made resupplying his troops that much more difficult, while the Roman allied army was well provisioned. A large skirmish by Aetius's Franks in the rear of the Hunnic column further slowed down Attila's advance, allowing Aetius to catch up. This forced Attila to leave a sizable rearguard of Gepids to allow the main army to take up position on the fields ahead. In light of the retreat from Aurelianum and having to fight off ambushes and skirmishing attacks over the past 10 days, the morale in the Hunnic army would have suffered. Attila had the added challenge of keeping the spirits up, assuring his followers that the favorable terrain just ahead is where they will make a stand and defeat the Romans.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. Things are already looking bad for Attila. I'm not gonna lie, bro. And it hasn't even began. It doesn't seem so great.
As he reached the open Catalaunian fields, Attila had to make a decision. He was on the defensive, and his army was tiring. He could either risk it all by giving battle, or retreat to fight another day. The Hunnic king was aware that there might not be another day, knowing that an army retreating through hostile territory was like a sick herd, an easy prey. Worse, to run away in the face of the enemy was no way for a warrior to live, certainly no way for a leader of his stature to retain his authority over the many tribal warlords under his command. He would fight the Romans. As June 19th drew to a close, Attila sent a cavalry detachment to occupy a ridge overlooking the valley, recognizing its importance straight away. Further ahead, he encamped on the banks of the Seine, with a wagon fort formed in the front and a bridge to the rear that would provide a vital avenue of escape across the river if things went badly. Towards the southwest, flat open plains extended as far as the eye can see, which would give the Huns advance warning of the approaching enemy. Tonight, his troops would get a good night's rest. Early on June 20th, the morning twilight witnessed a comet ominously piercing through the sky, as if to signal the start of the battle.
Yo! Yo! Oh, dude. Imagine the vibe. Imagine the vibe. I could only imagine what the vibe would have been like seeing that comet in the sky and you're literally about to fight a battle as big as this. Well, do they know that it's big? I don't know. But technically, this battle would have decided a lot. So yes, I would say big battle. Even without the use of hindsight, I'm sure Attila would have known how important this battle is. Like, Attila is not dumb. Far from it. But still, oh my goodness, dude. Especially like whatever the hell religion they believe in. Oh, oh, dude. Oh, I know that comment. That comment definitely had to create some type of vibe throughout that, man.
Soon after, Aetius appeared. Just as Attila suspected, the Roman general had divided his army into two columns, arriving around 7 a.m. Aetius wanted to deploy as early in the day as possible. He needed a quick, decisive battle. The conglomeration of his allies would disperse back to their homes if they became stuck in a prolonged war of attrition. After getting word from his scouts that the Romans are on their way, the Hunnic king began deploying his troops. Crucially, he sent another contingent of cavalry to reinforce the Hunnic riders on the ridge to the south. Unlike Aetius, Attila wanted to start the battle as late in the day as possible. If he could delay until there were only a few hours left before sunset, this would allow him to regroup under the cover of darkness if the Romans got the upper hand. And just as he suspected, Aetius did not want to leave a Hunnic contingent to his rear. While the rest of the army continued towards the battlefield, the Roman general tasked Theodoric's son, Thorismund, commander of the Visigothic cavalry, with taking the ridge.
My brother in Christ, what type of picture is that, bro? Did he actually look like, bro? Really putting that emphasis on barbarian with that look, bro. Oh my goodness, bro.
Visigoths approached up the slope. The Huns kept a distance. They withdrew slowly, showering the enemy with arrows. The harassment slowed down Thorismund's advance as the nimble horsemen kept retreating out of harm's way. Attila had no intention of fighting for control of the heights, rather on the flat plain below that better suited his army. Deploying his horsemen on the ridge was intended to disrupt Aetius's movements and drag out his deployment. And it seemed like Attila's delaying tactics were working. It wasn't until 11 a.m. that the Visigoths finally gained control of the heights, some 4 hours after the Roman army first appeared on the battlefield. Instead of advancing towards the middle of the field, where he would be vulnerable to encirclement by the fast-moving Huns, Aetius anchored his right flank on the rising slope to the south, and his left wing on the thick forest to the north. Just like Attila, Aetius tried to formulate his own contingency plan by forming his line at the start of the steep meadow that led up to the high lands behind him. If the battle went against him, this would allow him to withdraw uphill where it would have been difficult for the mounted Huns to pursue him.
And you want to know what's even worse? Attila his back is facing the river. That is not... Bro, Attila, you literally had the advantage. Advantage. That's what happens when you have a freaking overbite problem. You slur your words. Bro, I cannot wait until I get my braces and whatnot. Anyways. But his back is facing the river. You have one job, Attila. You had the advantage of choosing your battleground, and you chose you already made a mistake. Not even worse, Aetius over here has a way to retreat that he realizes. So you gave him a good path of retreat, but not you. Shaking my head. This is already going horrible. This went from bad to horrible. And the battle hasn't even begun yet. I already see how this is gonna go. I already know how this is gonna go.
Held the right wing. Most of them dismounted to form a shield wall to protect themselves from the Hunnic archers. A small cavalry contingent remained in reserve, commanded by the king himself. The mounted Alans were placed in the center right. Perhaps doubtful of Sangaban's dedication to the cause, Aetius may have wanted to surround the Alan leader with a host of faithful troops. Rather than forming a shield wall like the rest of the battle array, the Alans fought on horseback, similarly to the Huns. Aetius took command in the center left. From there to the left wing extended the Roman infantry, including the Franks, Burgundians, Saxons, and other allied tribes. Like the Visigoths, the majority formed a shield wall. 2 cavalry contingents were placed in reserve to plug any holes in the line.
Do you see how... This is late Roman era, by the way. You see how, like, so much Germans and barbarian tribes and Celtic tribes are dominating the Roman army now, right? I said this in my last reaction that I did yesterday, right? Where I was pointing out, like, guys, the barbarians had dominated Rome so much that by the time the barbarian king had basically just disassembled the Roman Empire, because it was like there was no point of it in the West anyways, because the barbarians had dominated so much and nothing had truly really changed, because for at least a good 70 to 100 years the barbarians were the ones basically somewhat more or less calling the shots. At that point it was like, yeah, let's just get rid of this thing that is kind of obsolete. I mean, really and truly, like, the Western Roman Empire really and truly kind of just became obsolete, more or less, right? That's a good way to put it. Oh my goodness. It's like, so that's why I was saying, like, why don't we call the Ostrogoths the successors to the Roman Empire, right? Because they didn't change anything, right? Keep in mind, and this is why I'm pointing this out, because it's very important that you remember this stuff, like you remember these details, right? The barbarians, because when people think of, oh, the Western Roman Empire collapsed, and I used to think this myself too, but most people would imagine that, oh, everything from the Western Roman Empire just completely ceased to exist. It was just completely gone, destroyed, lost of time. But these barbarians who were dominating at this point, they didn't change anything when they replaced the Western Roman Empire with the new kingdoms. They just simply decided to create, well, you know, their own kingdoms out of, you know, the Western Roman Empire, because it was basically obsolete at that point. So it's basically just like, you know, think of it like this, right? Yeah. You have an empty bottle or an empty cup, right? That you drank water. You drank water with it, right? You have a water cup, and you haven't used the cup to drink water in a long time, right? But you have juice, you have soda, you have something like that. But you don't have anything to pour it in and drink, but you still have that water cup, right? You don't have water there anymore, right? And now you're using that cup to drink soda, right? To drink whatever drink, you know, that you're imagining in your head right now, instead of water that you usually drink, right? So guess what? You're now constantly using that cup, which is the same cup, to drink water. The cup hasn't changed, but you're using it for something else, to drink a different type of juice instead of water, right? That's one way to look at it. It's like nothing changed. It's just the way how things, like, the political boundaries did change, yes, but like everything else didn't really change. Like, life was more or less still the same. So that is very much something to think about. It's so hard for me to explain things. I need to work on that. I really need to work on that. Trying to explain things. But I think you guys understand what I'm saying by that, though. Let's continue.
Meanwhile, Attila observed Aetius's defensive deployment. With the Roman formation tucked into the bottom of the hillside and most of the troops locked in a shield wall, no envelopment would be possible. But even though Aetius's deployment left no option except a frontal assault, Attila had never been defeated in battle, and he was on the battlefield of his own choosing. After all, it was he who crossed the Rhine to wage war on the Romans. Now was his chance to defeat them. He took up position in the centre with his Huns, the core of his army. On the left wing, Ostrogothic cavalry formed in the front. Arrayed in the second line were Germanic footmen, the Burgundians, Thuringians, Alemanni, Rugians, Heralds, and others.
Imagine those Germans, like, switch sides.
On the right wing, Frankish infantry and Gepid cavalry were placed in the front, with another contingent of mixed Germanic infantry in the back. The second line of Germanic infantry on both wings was to serve as a rallying point for the cavalry and to reinforce any attack. Just as he had planned, Attila successfully delayed Aetius's deployment.
I was gonna say, this is literally just Germans versus Germans for the most part. You have Germans on both sides just fighting each other. Oh my gosh. I know that there's like also like Roman and Huns too, but a lot of this is just Germans versus Germans, bro. Because the Franks are also just still Germans too at this point. So a lot. What the heck is this, bro?
Only 5 to 6 hours remained until sunset. It was time. Attila
it was
planned to
time.
focus his attack.
Yo, I like that. That went so freaking hard. That went so hard. It's time. And then the horns start. That
on the weaker
that was
Roman
hard. That was
centre
hard.
right. He would have seen that the placement of mounted Alans was the most vulnerable point in Aetius's line, and he wanted to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
The Franks and Gepids on the right, and the Ostrogoths on the left, with pinning down the Romans and Visigoths to allow him time to break the Alans. The Huns attacked in successive waves, maximizing the effect of their archery. To the average Roman soldier, it seemed that the barbarians purposely scattered into smaller bands, rushing about in disorder. The Alan contingent bore the brunt of the storm of arrows, but Attila also focused his volleys on the Visigoths and the Roman centre right in order to support the mounted attack on the wings. He knew that a cavalry charge could break against determined infantry, and he wanted to soften up and disrupt Aetius's ranks before the Ostrogoths, Franks, and Gepids began their charge. The Hunnic barrage continued for hours.
I mean, of course he does. Of course he knows that. He's been using horse warfare since, I don't know, he was a kid. I don't know.
Giving Aetius's men no respite. The physical and psychological impact on the Romans and Visigoths, cowering behind their shields, must have been immense.
Those horse archers, man. Those horse archers are just... Bro, I reacted to so much battles, man. Those horse archers, they always give a run for your money, man.
Responding with barrels of their own, but being mounted and stationary made them much easier targets, and as their losses mounted, gaps appeared in their line. Sensing that the concentrated arrow volleys have weakened their resolve, Attila ordered a general charge.
Interesting.
On a very narrow front, the Hunnic wedged formation smashed into the Alans, cutting straight through their formation. Overwhelmed, some of the Alans held on, while others fled, opening a gap that split the Roman army in two.
I knew they were gonna be the first ones to break. I knew it. I knew it.
Theodoric and Aetius turned their cavalry contingents in a desperate attempt to plug the hole in the center and stop the breakthrough. Either side of the gap, the shock of the Hunnic charge pushed back the enemy, bending their battle lines inwards. Then came Attila's Germanic infantry, adding more impetus to the attack. The men in the front clashed with their shields in close combat.
Bro, I just realized something. Wait, you have Germans on both sides fighting each other, right? Dude, I know 100% they were definitely throwing insults at each other. Imagine the insults that they were throwing at each other. I know 100%. They definitely could have understood each other. No way they could not. Dude, I could only imagine the insults that they're throwing at each other whilst trying to like slice each other down. Oh my goodness gracious me. I know some German curse word sentences, but I'm not gonna say it because I don't know if the YouTube algorithm could pick that up. But just thinking about it in my head, bro.
Jabbing at the enemy with spears and swords.
Oh my goodness.
On the Roman left, the battle swayed back and forth, but the mixed allied infantry managed to slow down the push of the Gepids and the Franks. On the right flank, however, the Visigoths were pressed hard by the combined charge of the Huns, Ostrogoths, and the mixed Germanic infantry. Then, word reached Aetius that King Theodoric was killed in the fighting while rallying his men. Realizing that this was a critical moment in the battle, the Roman general gave the signal to Thorismund.
Well, that's one problem for Aetius gone.
Until now hidden from view behind the crest of the hill.
Holy!
The
I forgot this guy was a thing.
Gothic cavalry poured down the slope. Caught off guard, Attila's Germanic infantry faced about to form a line against the incoming cavalry. But without enough time to form a shield wall, they were quickly overrun.
Yeah,
In the center,
that's...
Aetius managed to rally the Alans and stabilize the line. Attila's attempt to steamroll the Roman center had failed, and now his attack stalled. Soon, his left wing fell apart as the Ostrogoths fled the field. To avoid encirclement, Attila too disengaged and retreated towards the fortified camp. Sporadic skirmishing continued until sunset,
but he's not.
When all fighting died down.
Yeah, he ain't done yet, man.
Upon learning of the death of his father, Thorismund wanted to besiege the Hunnic camp and continue the fight on the next day. But some sources claim that, inexplicably, Aetius used his charm to dissuade the Visigothic heir apparent, reminding him that it would be wiser for him to depart for Toulouse to secure his throne. Another story suggests that the Roman general received payment from the Hunnic king and possibly looked to rebuild the relationship with the Huns, whose mercenaries he could again use to reassert his authority in Gaul. It remains unclear why Aetius didn't press the advantage when he had Attila at his mercy. But in all likelihood, after defeating the Huns, he was faced with the inevitable breakup of his temporary alliance, and thus had no choice but to end the engagement. Whatever the case, Attila was able to withdraw from the field in good order and head back across the Rhine.
Bruh, okay.
Aetius...
Bruh moment. Like, actually, bruh moment.
His accomplishment on the Catalaunian... overstated. In defeating the Huns, he demonstrated exceptional leadership, diplomatic, strategic, and tactical prowess.
Yeah, that man was a diplomatic god, I'm not gonna lie.
Made him one of the greatest leaders of late antiquity. His former friend Attila didn't succeed in carving out a kingdom in Gaul, but still wielded immense power and was not ready to give up his ambitions against the West. The following year, he surprised Aetius by invading Italy. Aquileia was besieged and captured. Cities across the Po Valley were sacked, although the capital Ravenna was protected by its surrounding marshes. Attila continued south before abruptly retreating due to supply shortages and a possible outbreak of plague within his army. He and his troops had already acquired considerable plunder, and many were keen to head back home before winter. In addition, the Eastern Empire began launching offensive operations against Attila's kingdom, which was another reason to withdraw from Italy. While Western Rome did not defeat him, Attila's own power rested on continuous success, and the failure to win an outright victory may have weakened his authority. Nevertheless, he planned to renew his campaign next year. But in early 453 he took a young wife, and after a night of excessive celebration, he was found dead the following morning.
Bruh. 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 Attila! You're telling me that Attila died because he got too caught up? Oh, I can't even say that word. He got too caught up with kitty cat. Oh. And you want to know what's so sad about that? A lot of men still make that mistake of focusing way too hard on women and ruin their lives over it. Shaking my head.
The exact cause of his death is not known, but he left no designated heir, and the fight for
the man drank too much. He got kitty whipped. I can't say the other word, but you know what I mean by kitty whipped.
the throne among his sons and the many allies making their bids for power caused the Hunnic realm to collapse within just a few years.
Wow. Why is it that every great conqueror, right, their empire always collapses after they die? Anyone else like notices that too?
Fate was not kind to Aetius either. His power began to wane in recent years.
Bro, that wasn't even fate, bro. That was just Attila being dumb. That's like a death that... There's like two types of death. There's like death where it's like considered loss of life, meaning that you could have prevented it, most likely. You could have done something to stop that from happening from the get-go. Like, I know car accidents are considered to be in that category of loss of life, meaning that you could have lived much longer, and you probably would have, but that car accident just stopped that. But it's basically something that caused upon yourself. But then the other category of death is like dying of natural causes, right? That's something that you can't really... Am I thinking about that? No, wait. I think I'm thinking about that wrong. I think that only applies to young person, old person. I think if you die young, then it's considered loss of life. But if you die old, then no, that's not considered loss of life. I think I'm remembering that wrong. Freaking hell. Oh, whatever. 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 Forget what I said. Okay. No, but what I'm saying is this. No, Attila caused that upon himself.
Years, ever since he could no longer recruit the Huns to fight for him. And with Attila defeated, his military expertise was less necessary. By 454, the general understood his precarious position and hoped to use his influence over the emperor to secure his position by making sure that the marriage between his son and the emperor's daughter went through. But Emperor Valentinian, now well in his 30s, still resented Aetius.
Bro!
However, he was never able to rule in his own right and was instead influenced by ambitious men at his court. One such man was a senator, Petronius Maximus, who plotted his own rise to power. Exploiting the hatred that Valentinian had for Aetius, the senator persuaded him to lure the general to a meeting in Ravenna. Once there, Valentinian and his eunuch chamberlain attacked Aetius during a discussion and hacked him to death.
Ah! Caesar style, bro! They did him like Caesar, bro!
Still, the instigator Petronius had grander designs. Just a few months later, he recruited 2 of Aetius's bodyguards to murder Valentinian. Soon
wow!
After, Petronius declared himself emperor. All of the major actors involved in the events surrounding the Catalaunian fields were dead within a few years after the battle. As for the Roman Empire, it would continue to stagger onwards for another 20 years. Credit goes to our awesome patron.
The Roman Empire didn't even feel like the Roman Empire at this point anymore. Especially with that battle that we had, bro. Oh my god. That didn't even feel like a Roman battle, bro. Honestly. Look, man, if you're new to my channel and you have any suggestions for me, make sure to go and suggest it in the comments down below. Eventually, I'll do it. If you have a suggestion or you have many suggestions and you want me to do it quicker, because I get a lot of suggestions every single day, quite literally, you could become a channel member for 99 cents a month, or you could just drop a little super thanks. You could also do that if you just want to do it for a one-time thing. especially as my channel slowly grows more and more bigger over time. So there is also that. If you aren't new to my channel and you're new, make sure to like the video so that more people could come in. You know, we could get more people in this community, right? We need more people here, you know, so that we can have civil discussions. Well, sometimes it's civil, other times it's not. Anyways, man, I got loads of other reactions on my channel like this. Go check it out, man. Thank you for watching, man. Goodbye.